welcome to Walk With Me Ministries. I'm glad you've joined us as we continue to look at today's current events through the lens of God's holy word. If you pay attention to our local news here in Georgetown County, South Carolina, it is election season, as in most places, and we have a little bit of a drama going on in a local county council election, as Democrat Johnny Morant is being contested against Republican candidate David Ballard. And Johnny was his brother who passed away in 2020, and Lewis took over his spot in District 7. Now, all of this has come about because the GOP chairman here in Georgetown County, our GOP Republican committee organization, is accusing the Georgetown County and the Democratic Committee of misusing funds in order to re-elect Lewis Morant to the District 7 seat. And the misuse of funds isn't just any funds, it is the taxpayer funds of Georgetown County. Supposedly, or allegedly, let's say allegedly, the Democratic committee who wants to re-elect Lewis Morant used this community service in order to gain support for Morant during the election. On October 15th, people gathered to do a community cleanup. Then afterwards, around 1 o'clock, there was a fish fry. Morant printed flyers, or the Democratic committee to elect Morant printed flyers for the event, and it was also posted on Morant's wife's social media pages. Now, of course, this seems to be a play between two political candidates desiring to be elected to our District 7 county seat. So today's podcast isn't necessarily about these candidates or who to vote for or who is right or wrong or which committee is right or wrong. The post is more about how the GO committee decided to attack the event in Morant. And what they did is they sent the allegations to the South Carolina State Committee on Ethics. And the allegations include the misuse of not only funds, but of properties like the computers, county computers, and other materials in order to make the flyers and to do what that needed to be done. Now, Morant, of course, he says that it was all on the up and up. This was just a community service that he was just involved in. And the GOP says that that's just not coincidental, that it was a strategic plan, underhanded plan, a plan to cover up the true nature of what Morant was trying to do, which is to do research and to gain support for his re-election. Now, when we think about this, one of the questions we need to ask ourselves is, how does God view this kind of political gamesmanship? Is it good? I mean, Jesus tells us to be as shrewd as serpents. But are we to expect this kind of, these kinds of accusations and mudslinging, especially at such a local level as we have here? Well, I think we are to be shrewd, and I think we are to be wise. But I think we are to call our political representatives, whatever side they may be on, to do the right thing. I don't know if the South Carolina Ethics Committee will find any truth to the allegations made against Louis Morant. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But what I do know is that God's Word tells us in Leviticus chapter 19, verses 35 to 36, this: "You shall do no wrong in judgment, in measures of length or weight or quantity. You shall have just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt." And those verses are very important for us to understand that this is the kind of ethics we should expect from all of our politicians. Not just from Morant or, if elected, from Ballard, but from our state officials, from our federal politicians that represent us. We should hold them accountable to being just and ethical in the things that they do. God looks at this. This is one of the things that he accuses Israel for when it comes time for judgment from Babylon, and sends them into exile. Not only were they not keeping the Sabbath as they should, not only were they following after the idols of the other nations that they were living among, but they were being unjust in their business dealings with each other. And that's something that we as believers should take seriously, because it is something that God takes seriously. It is something that His Word specifically points out and tells us to be aware of. God in these verses in Leviticus is showing an ethical side of our lives that should be true not only to Him but to each other. David in Psalm 15 talks about those who sojourn to worship the Lord. Those who shall ascend to that holy hill. And David answers his questions with these words: "He who walks blamelessly and does what is right and speaks truth in his heart, who does not slander with his tongue and does no evil to his neighbor, nor takes up a reproach against his friend." It is this kind of attitude that our politicians should indeed have towards one another. Until next time, may the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious to you.